Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. Minister Desmond Bannister declared that the government of the Bahamas is working to fully eradicate shanty towns, focusing on cleanup and removal. Ever since that statement, the ball has been rolling with eviction notices and deadlines to vacate these properties. Clearly, the government means business, as many residents of these communities are living here illegally, accessing free utilities and the like. The message is clear: no more business as usual. Yet, they have committed to a humane process. Tonight, our topic is Shantytown Initiative, for better or worse. Our debaters are human rights activist and spokesman for the Haitian community, Louis George, Dr. Sharita Moxie, who represents the Ministry of Health on the Shantytown Initiative Task Force, and member of the PLP National Platform Committee, or chairman of that committee, Anton Thompson. He represents the Progressive Liberal Party on the show tonight. It's all on the record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins now on the other side of this break.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
One America News Network, your leading source for the latest breaking national and international news. With nearly 4 times as many headlines as the other networks. Straight news, no speculation, no opinion, just the facts. Complete coverage 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One America News Network, your source for credible news.
Welcome back to On the Record. Minister Desmond Bannister said despite calls for true regulation, the government will not relent on its mandate to get rid of shanty towns. Our topic tonight is Shantytown Initiative, for better or for worse. Our guests, well-known human rights activist and spokesman for the Haitian community, Louis George, Sharita Moxie, who represents the Ministry of Health on the Shantytown Initiative Task Force, and Anton Thompson, a member of the Progressive Liberal Party's National Platform Committee. Welcome to On the Record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sharita, I'm going to start with you. Certainly talk about the basis for all of this. Shanty towns have been in existence for decades. Some people have claimed that they have lived, or their families have lived in these areas for 30 years. People have always spoken about them in disgust for various reasons. But this is really the first real tangible and serious effort towards eradicating these areas where people are living who do not have clear title to the property or are just sort of squatted on the property for the most part. Why now? Why is this issue so important for government to deal with now?
Jerome, I think it's important for us to, especially now considering that we just came out of the independence celebration,
sure,
for us to recognize that as Bahamians, we really should want to elevate our nation, sure, elevate ourselves, but also create an environment where others can be elevated. And I think you've rightly said that for decades, I think extending back to the 1970s, you know, the issue of shanty towns have been in the national conversation. Why now? I think there's no better time to do the right thing than now. We note that there are several issues that arise out of the shanty towns. We recognize the environmental issues, the health issues, the social issues, not to mention the fact that a lot of the shantytown structures are just illegal structures. And I think we can ill afford to continue to give a pass to illegal practices in the Bahamas. Again, I go back to the fact that we just celebrated our independence, where we should have been inured to uphold the laws of our land. And I think this initiative moves towards that, us being accountable and us upholding the laws of the land.
Anton, the PLP has spoken out against the move, but if I'm not mistaken, this would have started in some ways under a Progressive Liberal Party. I think there was a study done, I think it was back in 2013. Yes. And there was a number, I think somewhere about 1,300 was the number I think I would have read. But you all have criticized this move by the government. I mean, and to the point, why not now and why not do the right thing?
Well, Jerome, you stated earlier when you were speaking with Ms. Moxie that it's the first time that such a move has been made, but it's not, as you indicated a few moments ago. We've produced a studied report in 2013 under the former minister, Kenry Dorset. And it was a very detailed report that spoke to several areas concerning the shanty towns. Several studies were done in terms of the health, social welfare, in terms of the construction of the homes, and them not meeting the standards that are set out by the building codes in the Ministry of Works, et cetera, et cetera. And so the Progressive Liberal Party we have been seeking to resolve this issue. And the issue is it's not as simple as just making a cut and thrust decision to adhere to the laws of the Bahamas, which is why, in large, the problem has loomed for so long. We have to take into consideration not only the laws of the Bahamas, but the fact that we are talking about human beings when we are dealing with shanty towns. We are talking about persons, in many instances, who are not illegal migrants, but who are legally here in one form or the other, whether it's through work permits or permanent resident, or have been here for several generations and have families who are living in the shanty towns with them. There are also the issue to consider that we not only have persons who are migrants in the shantytown communities, but we have persons who are Bahamians residing in the shantytown communities. Right. And so there is the economic aspect that has to be considered in the process. There's the housing aspect that has to be considered. And when you displace persons who are already experiencing challenging economic situations, you have to consider how that is going to have a larger impact on the society at large. And so it doesn't just come down to a matter of upholding the laws after independence, but you have to look at the entire picture and come up with the best solution that works for everyone at the end of the day.
Pardon me, Louis, you have called for several things in relation to this exercise, one being more time for people who are going to be displaced. Now, the government has said they are extending the deadline from the 31st of July to the 10th of August. Yourself and others have said this is not enough time. But the government announced from as early as January that they were going to move in this direction, and this move was going to happen. You and I spoke about this even on this very same show, I think, some weeks back. So my question is, I think, and in the question in the minds of a lot of people is, if persons who lived in these areas knew this was happening, why were they not making plans or doing something to prepare for what is now the inevitable?
Well, thank you once again, Jerome, for having me on. And I want to say that I totally agree with Anton's position and the PLP's position on this particular matter. Persons have been making arrangements to move out, but you touched on the economic factor here. Affordable housing, period, is not so readily available in the country. That's why we have individuals living in the conditions that they're living in Kemp Road, in Bain Towns, in Grangetown. That's why we have this over-the-hill initiative that the government is pushing forward. You understand, Jerome, where I'm coming from? So the economic situation, the exploitation that sometimes we talk about, the economic slaves that we have in our country, for the lack of a better term. And what I mean by that is the fact that we know that minimum wage is set at $210, I think it may be. But the average Haitian isn't earning that. Who are they going to complain to? Minimum wage is at 210, we're giving them 160, 150, whatever we feel like giving them at the end of the week. But
taking advantage.
Taking advantage, but they cannot complain about this because I, the employer, I hold your rights basically for you being in the Bahamas legally and having a job. I can say I'm not going to sign off on a work permit for you anymore. And so people have been trying to do the best that they can. And also, Jerome, this thing, decades, you go back to the 70s, you just mentioned that this whole shantytown thing can go back to. But how can we honestly think that in 6 months, we can deal with this issue? We're not talking about the social aspect. We're not talking about how will this ultimately impact the entire Bahamas. We're just hearing we're going in, you have a certain deadline. If you don't move by then, the illegal structures or the homes will be bulldozed or they will be demolished. That's it. What happens next? The FNM government has failed in articulating to the Bahamian people and also the shantytown residents as to what happens next.
Sharita, the government has said to the minister that, you know, they are looking at this as following the law, but also keeping in mind or attempting to be humane about all of this. And to that point, what is being done, or is there a plan to accommodate those individuals who are going to be displaced come August 10th? I think the minister has also indicated that up to 70% of the persons who would have lived there, from his understanding, would have already moved out. He said that's what he understands. But what is to happen to those individuals come August 10th who are still on the properties?
So let me start off by saying that as a physician, I certainly understand the importance of humanity. And I think that that has been the thrust of the the Shantytown Task Force, ensuring that the integration of those persons who live in the Shantytown community is conducted in such a way that it is humane.
So you are satisfied that the process has been humane to this point?
Completely. I'm satisfied, and I'm sure the Minister Folks, who is the chair of the Shantytown Committee, is also satisfied. We have done studies, so we recognize that there are, I think it's 71% of those who live in the shantytowns actually have legal status in the country. We recognize this. 15% of those are actually Bahamian citizens. What happens to those persons who are in the shantytowns? We are a part of the work of the committee has been to identify housing opportunities so that they can reach out to various landlords who are in mainstream house or have mainstream housing opportunities. The government of the Bahamas, as I understand, will not be providing funding or giving subsidies for housing and accommodations for those who are relocating from a shantytown community. So, but they have put in place mechanisms for them to seek out housing.
Okay, and along those lines though, when you look at even the time that was given, I think there was a, you guys would have, the task force would have visited the shantytowns, asked the residents to produce, I think, building permits, which some did, but did not have occupancy certificates. And then notice was given for them to move. Realistically, was that enough time for someone who is at the poverty line, living below the poverty line, lower income, to seriously find somewhere else to live within a particular period of time? Was that enough time?
As has been stated around the table already, Jerome, the task force has indicated this from earlier in the year. This isn't something that was just articulated 2-3 weeks ago. This was months ago. I answer your question by saying that I think we must also be cognizant of the fact that we have Bahamians in mainstream housing who, for whatever reason, are also facing economic distress, and their homes are being repossessed by the bank. So the bank doesn't say, okay, well, we'll give you an extra 2 days, an extra 3 days. And it's not to be harsh. I don't want to come off as being harsh and insensitive. We understand the sensitivity of the situation. At the same time, I think if we prolong doing what is right, creating a mechanism for persons who live in the communities to integrate into mainstream Bahamian communities, then we continue to do this country a disservice.
I want to, I want to though bring, yeah, sure, I want to, and you can answer in all of this at the same time. But some of the issues raised within these shanty towns are issues that Bahamians have spoken to over the years in terms of the community. The abuse of children, the sick people that live in there, the quality of life which is below standard. I mean, and having visited the areas, but I know all of this to be so. And then also you look at what happens to the surrounding communities. You build your house, you buy your property, you invest in your home, and all of a sudden there is a shanty town which brings down the value of your home. So now you are disenfranchised to a certain degree by something that is, you know, out of your control. And what do you say to individuals who bring up these points, that these areas really are, there are a lot of issues within these areas that feed into larger social issues? You know,
Jerome, and again, let me thank you for the opportunity to be here with you tonight on the show. And it's a pleasure to be amongst yourself, Ms. Moxie and Louie. As it relates to issues that are offsets from the primary issue of shanty towns, I just had a conversation with regards to such concerns with a friend of mine who's an electrical engineer, as it relates to subdivisions and, you know, challenges that we face with what is considered illegal subdivision in the country, where you have 6 or more houses on one property, right? However, if you're going to take it from that approach, then naturally there's a disservice to the surrounding communities, persons who would have gone out and worked very hard and done it the right way, invested into their properties, their homes, etc., built up their homes and pour all of their monies through monthly mortgages into maintaining their homes and maintaining their service obligations to the banks. And that's a major consideration that has to be brought to bear in the entire picture. But that's only one part of the picture, Jerome. Like was mentioned earlier, when we look at what is happening countrywide, the entire country is suffering. These are very difficult economic times, in particular for poor, working class, and middle class families in this country. We are all suffering. Okay, and as would have been pointed out by Ms. Moxie, when you have persons who would have gone and got mortgages, if they forfeit payment, then they lose their homes. However, we're talking about private institutions in that regard. We're not talking about government. See, there is a different consideration when we talk about governance and when we talk about private sector. The government, first and foremost, has an obligation to do things that is in the best interest of the country, of the people of the country, of the advancement of the country. And to strip away persons who are already having a very difficult economic time, that's heartless. That makes no sense. As a matter of fact, before this consideration was even brought to bear, there should have been a study produced to show exactly what is happening, to determine exactly what approach the government is going to take, to determine exactly how the government is going to assist these persons, Bahamians as well as legal migrants in these communities, assist them with finding other accommodations. I didn't hear Ms. Moxie speak to any specifics as to exactly how the government is going to take that on. That's a concern for me. For too long in our country, as it relates to governance and administration, we have been speaking in generalities. That makes no sense. If we're going to come up with a realistic plan that's going to resolve the shantytown issue in this country, it needs to be something that's focused, it needs to be something that's specific, it needs to be something that is measured in terms of a time frame, it needs to be measured in terms of a cost to accommodate this entire project. I'm not hearing any of that as it relates to the government. Okay. Right?
Agree. Gentlemen, the reason I'm going to hop over and allow you to speak a little, because I know Ms. Moxie has another engagement and we want to let her just say something before she heads out. My question though, at the end of the day in all of this, some of these individuals have building permits. Some of these people or these individuals are renting properties that were erected on these parcels of land. what is going to happen, or is there a course of action against those people who have allowed this to, spring up on their property, or these people had to get building permits from somewhere? So what is going to happen to the individuals who are complicit in all of this? Is there going to be the same fervor to deal with those individuals?
So we have represented on the task force the Ministry of Works. Ministry of Works conducted a survey of all the structures within the 11 shantytowns in New Providence. Of all the structures in New Providence, I believe there were 11, possibly 12, that actually complied with the zoning laws. None of them produced occupancy certificates. None were able to produce occupancy certificates. As it relates to what happens now, because as you rightly say, they had to have gotten
someone had to approve it.
Something from somewhere.
Somebody gave it to them.
That, Jerome, is above my pay grade.
I
will certainly have the minister address that question.
That's why we asked the minister to come on, I just want you to know. We asked. But, I thank you for representing him. I know that you do have another engagement to get to. Sharita Moxie, thank you very much, a member of the task force. We appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us. We certainly know that this issue will be ongoing, and we'll have an opportunity to speak to it again in the future. So we thank you for spending a little more time with us. Gentlemen, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we have lots more questions. Just so you know, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I've got some questions for you guys. The Shantytown Initiative, for better or for worse, is our topic tonight. Our first break starts right now. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, I'm Davriel, and welcome to Rev Tips, where we answer your most important Rev service questions. Today's questions are all about RevGo Play, the new TV Everywhere app from Rev. How many devices can I use RevGo Play on per Rev TV account? You can use up to 3 devices on RevGo Play per Rev TV account, and you can stream live 2 devices simultaneously. How do I record my favorite shows on RevGo Play? Simply select your favorite show, select record, and choose between current or series recording. How many NDV hours do I have, and when do they expire? You can record up to 20 hours of content using your RevGo Play NDVR. Your recorded content will remain in your storage folder for up to 30 days. How do I activate Catch Up TV or Start Over? If you've just tuned into your favorite show but want to start from the beginning, simply select Restart. If you have more questions about RevGo Play, feel free to visit the RevGo Play page on cablebahamas.com or call our support team at 601-2200.
Welcome back to more On the Record tonight. My guests, Louis George and Anton Thompson. We want to thank Dr. Sharita Moxie, who spent some time with us this evening, but certainly had to leave for another engagement. Gentlemen, that first segment, we really began to get a sense of what was behind this initiative by the government. As we said, it was something that was announced from as early as January that this would happen, but certainly we are, I guess, now at ground zero in many instances, as government has said that by August 10th, the individuals in these areas must be gone. One of the key areas of concern, though, is in Abaco, because I think even the government has indicated that there are inadequate rental properties in Abaco to accommodate the individuals who are going to have to move out of these shantytown areas. And Abaco especially is known, as you could speak to it as well, I'm sure, Louis, for the very large and even, I would say, vibrant shantytown communities. And the concern is what is going to happen to the individuals in these areas who now must move.
And just like Abaco, Jerome, the government has said that Abaco's deadline is next year. And so we have this Shantytown Task Force, we have this initiative to rid ourselves of shantytowns, but Abaco gets until next year. The government used their discretion based on the fact that there isn't adequate affordable housing or houses available for rent in Abaco. But has the government shown us that there is adequate affordable housing here in Nassau. We have yet to see that. I heard the good doctor talk about the fact that the government has been surveying the landscape of Nassau to find out where available apartments are. Dion Folks also spoke to that, Minister Dion Folks. But the people in the shanty town, I've been moving in and out of basically every one of these shanty towns from east to west. Bacardi Road, Cowpin Road, we've been inside of these shanty towns. As early as Monday we were in shanty towns, right? And the individuals are still waiting. They've yet to see this list of available apartments for rent. It is one thing for the government to say things, but we from the Bahamian side, we're not in and around the Haitian people. We're not in and around the shanty towns. And so we're basically going off of what the government is saying. We heard the minister say that 70% of persons have already left the shanty towns. I mean, what measures are we using to gauge this, you know? I've been going into shanty towns and I see no difference. The people are still there and they're saying we need more time, and they're saying we don't have a list, we don't know where the apartments are, we don't know how much the apartments will cost. And so, I mean...
And I'd like to add something to that as well, Jerome. You know, when we look at what has been happening over the last 13 months of administration, right, where there's been so many missteps, there's been so many promises made and so many promises broken, well, twice as many broken as were made, right? It makes it very difficult for someone like myself to just take the government at its word, okay? To be quite frank, okay? It's no disrespect, it's just speaking the truth to power, you know? And so I need the government to provide those details as to where are these persons who are migrating from the shanty towns going, where exactly in Nassau communities are they going, what kind of rent are these persons able to afford themselves some level of normalcy in transitioning from the shanty towns. How is this impacting on their children? And you know, you raised a very good point that I wanted to speak to before the good doctor left, Dr. Moxie. I wanted to find out specifically what level of responsibility is going to be placed on the persons who accommodated for the shanty towns to be developed in the first place, right? Because even in the aftermath of the shanty towns being cleared, whenever that happens, right? I doubt very seriously it's going to be on the timeline that they're on. But once that happens, we have another program that has to unfold at that point. There's the breaking down of the homes. There's the clearing down of the properties. There's the clearing and cleaning of the earth in terms of the environment, the water tables, et cetera, et cetera. And so the Department of Health is going to have to play a major role. All of these things in the face of what we are faced with in the country after the last budget, communication. We had a 60% increase in VAT, a 4.5% increase in an already burdensome VAT situation in the country. The government's mantra from it came to office has been the country is penny tight. We don't have the pennies to spend. Therefore, this is going to call for a massive cleanup exercise. Where is this money going to come from? Has this money been allocated in our budget to accommodate such a cleanup exercise? Who is going to put this bill? What role are the owners of these properties where shanty towns exist going to play in the development and the cleanup and the exercise that is going to have to be played out in its entirety in this process? We're not hearing any of that. That's the flip side of this conversation. And as I would have alluded to while Dr. Moxie was here, I had a conversation, very in-depth conversation with a friend of mine who is an electrical engineer, right? And she would have brought to me the consideration that, look, similar to what Dr. Moxie was saying, you have to consider those persons who, when they rent and they're displaced because they can't afford their rent anymore. What is the government going to do to help other persons in the larger communities around the Bahamas to bring some level of normalcy? We have unemployment that is very high in this country. If we want to talk about the realities of shanty towns, we have similar situations in middle-class communities where families can't afford to put food on the table, where children are being pulled from schools.
You know, that's a whole other discussion. But in respect to this, and I'm going to take it from the perspective of the average Bahamian. These communities are made up largely of immigrant populations, people who could have come illegally, okay? Set up in an illegal situation. You build on land, using, even in some cases, utilities illegally, okay? And as a property owner, as a taxpayer, I have to pay taxes on my property. I have to pay rent, I have to pay mortgage, I have to pay for utilities, I have to do all of these things, and I am now operating within the law. And not everybody living in these shanty towns is living below the poverty line. Let me just say that. There are some people who are making decent salaries, and from what I've seen, have built quite nice accommodations. So that, of course, raises another question. But as an average Bahamian, I look at this and I think, well, why is this, if this is all an illegal situation that has allowed to fester, that has been allowed to fester for so long, why should it be the government's responsibility to clean up an illegal situation that has been allowed to sit for so many years? And why should, to your point, that now be another expense to bear on the taxpayer, who's already, you know, having, as you would have said, having to bear the cost of value-added tax? Why now is that my responsibility? And I'm sitting at the point of an average Bahamian who, you know, is living within the law, paying the taxes like everybody else and doing what I'm supposed to do. Now, all of a sudden, this issue has come to bear on me, and it is all spawned out of an illegal situation.
But first of all, Jerome, you know, being born, raised in this country, and my parents are immigrants. My parents migrated here from Haiti also in the early 80s. We never lived in a shanty town. My parents came here broke, no education, with nothing, no family.
And
no
were able to make a way, right?
And were able to make a way. And so we are not giving persons in the shanty towns a pass. We're not
but
giving
do you accept, though, that these shanty towns have given, there are people in there who could have afforded regular housing, but chose to live there because it was an easy economic way out. Not that they
totally
could
agree.
not afford, but chose to live there. So let's accept now, first of all, that this is a choice.
Yes.
Okay.
For some.
For some. I'm not saying for everybody. For some.
Certainly not the majority.
Well, I can't say that. I've not seen the study. I don't know. But there are individuals.
I don't think it is a clear choice for the majority, but there are countless individuals in there who could do better, who are working. Their employers are pulling up in front of the shanty towns and picking them up, or they're driving their nice vehicles out of the shanty towns to go to work. And so we can't give everybody a pass, and we're not giving the shanty town residents a pass. But this thing, the government is complicit in my opinion. Okay, past administrations.
I was about to say, when you say government now, that can't be just now. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not talking about this administration and the
this
isn't just started.
Listen, under for some certain
all governments,
under Ingram, under Perry Christie, under all of the Perry Christie administrations,
and Ingram administration. If you've been living on a property for 30 years,
yes,
okay,
yes. So
you've only been independent
in my opinion,
45.
Is complicit.
And the current,
yes, we said the current prime minister. I understand you're political, right? But nonetheless,
no,
yes,
it's not political.
The government is complicit in allowing this thing to balloon out of control and to where it is today. But we have to couple in the fact that you're talking about human beings still. So we allowed this for 30, 40 years to get to where it is. 6 months is not enough time to deal with it. 6 months is enough time for you to come in with a bulldozer and break it down. But we're not talking about the social impact this is going to have on our economy. We just went through the budget period, like a process like Anton just made mention of. Social services has a certain amount of money allocated. We sat down, did our studies, and we suggest that social services need this amount to be able to, go through next year, right? So when you now go into the shanty towns and you displace all of these individuals who are Bahamians, who are permanent residents, who have children, who we have a responsibility to, children who are in our jurisdiction. Education has a responsibility for children who are in our jurisdiction. So when we're moving, let's say, 500 kids from one area and go to the next district, do we have the necessary schools in any particular district to handle the influx of these new students now who are going to have to be in this area? You understand, Jerome? So we're not talking about using that land to say, let us build affordable housing on that land. If we don't build outwards, why don't we go up? Why are we building, 3-4 story?
But, government has said, with the exception, I think, of a few pieces of land, this is all crown land, eh?
For the most part.
For the most part, Crown land.
It is.
Crown land that they've
that was leased for farming.
Yes.
So, there is a
So
there is
now
evidence.
it begs a question to me, who were they leasing it to for farming? And if you were supposed to have the land to farm on, how did the shanty town get there? And why was that shanty town allowed to exist?
Who allowed
Gentlemen,
it?
we're going to put a pin in right there. We've got to take a break. We've got lots more to talk about. Shantytown Initiative, for better or worse, it's our topic tonight. We're back right after this. We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion, and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to SBTJapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
We are back with more On the Record. We're discussing the Shantytown Initiative, for better or for worse. My guests, Luby George and Anton Thompson. Gentlemen, residents are being represented by the human rights group Rights Bahamas, RB, with the legal director Fred Smith. He's accused the government of ethnic cleansing, which he said started under the former PLP administration. He is getting families to sign on to a class action suit against the government. He claims the government can't just demand that people leave their homes, taking an illegal shortcut to deal with social issues. I wanted to bring that up for two reasons. One, if you're mounting a legal defense, that's going to lead to what could very well be a protracted legal argument, which could actually impact what is happening. The Attorney General and the Minister, who is the chairman of this task force, have said that they're operating within the law and will, by all accounts, be able to stave off this challenge. However, he brings up a very good point. And he says it's something that started under the former administration. You would have mentioned that under the former, I think we would have accepted under the last PLP administration, a study was done, and some things started. So I'm going back now to why was not more done? If this process started, why was not more done to begin to eradicate this problem and to deal with it? To your point that 6 months, relatively a short time, but why not? Why didn't the former administration, in your estimation, move to do more to begin to alleviate this problem? If you're saying that you need a plan and all these things need to happen, why was that not started and gotten far beyond where we are under the former administration?
Okay, to speak to your question, first of all, let me just express that yes, the Progressive Labour Party did have a study done, 2013, all the shanty towns and the major islands, family islands, and New Providence. And so that was a part of the process to identify what are the challenges and the basic challenges, the most basic and fundamental challenges within the shanty towns, whether it be from a sewage perspective, whether it be from a garbage collection perspective, whether it be from a construction of homes perspective, whether it be from potable water perspective, whether it be from health and issues emanating from health concerns in the shanty towns perspective. And so the government did do a lot of work as it relates to identifying the root challenges and problems in the shanty towns. However, when you balance what is happening in the country now, as we would have had a discussion off air just now relating to the popularity of stating or making a statement publicly that we're going to clear all of the shanty towns. That sounds very good in the public domain to Bahamians, and Bahamians like to hear stuff like that, right? And so when you look, when you balance that back again with a government that wants to do right in, and trying to move along regularizing shanty towns, it makes it very difficult for a government in the face of such overwhelming odds from the Bahamian people to step in and immediately transform, or with immediate
what would you say were the overwhelming odds of facing the former administration? If you say the economy is where it is now,
right.
What were the odds a few years ago in making this happen?
As it relates to the Bahamian electorate, the Bahamian government is first and foremost elected to serve on behalf of the Bahamian people and make decisions that are in the best interest of the Bahamian people. And we had a previous administration under the PLP led by the former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, who had a lot of initiatives on the board, but at the same time, we were a government that listened to what the people wanted, okay? And so you can develop a program today that would help to eliminate a lot of the challenges that are being experienced by persons in the shanty towns, to help to regularize them in a humane manner, right? However, when you have the outcry from the population, on the other hand, and that outcry is consistent and it's unrelenting, then the government has to give a listening ear to the persons who they are responsible to at the end of the day, the persons who they are accountable to at the end of the day. And the government has to do its best in those circumstances to try and balance the two, so that it doesn't use its authority and weight to crush the persons who are least able to defend themselves, and at the same time to be able to serve the people who they were called to serve.
You're saying that the public outcry would have delayed this process?
I'm saying that the voices of the public, the majority, overwhelming voices of the public demanding a certain result from its government would have played a great part in what the Progressive Liberal Party would have done to try and address this matter. After all,
now, Mr. Thompson, I hear what you're saying, but is it not a government's duty to carry out what is right, or what the law says that you should do? That is what people elect you to do. People elect you to govern, which is sometimes a very difficult thing to do, because people will elect you to do a certain thing until it is time to do it, and then we'll begin to push back. But your job as government, as I understand it, is to do what is in the best interest of Bahamians.
Right.
And if these shanty towns are creating social issues, environmental issues, issues of property devaluation, even sometimes I've said to be a breeding ground for criminals or criminal activity. Is not the government mandated to move ahead and do something about that?
Absolutely. And the government did put in place a task force that had the responsibility of carrying out those concerns, as you would have pointed out, right? Another of the challenges that the Progressive Liberal Party government faced in the prior administration would have been funding in order to be able to carry out the many exercises that would have been required in order to bring some level of normalcy and to regularize the shanty towns. The government lacked the funding capacity in its budgets to be able to afford this. And so this is not a project, this is not a platform, this is not a program that will happen in 6 months. It's not a program that will happen in 3 months.
Could have happened in 5 years.
Well, you know,
I already thought that.
No, that's a bad question. And I would throw this out at you.
Okay.
When you look at the fact that, considering the government had to implement 7.5% VAT, that speaks to itself the conditions that the country was in financially.
Okay.
When you look at the fact that we had 2 major hurricanes that
totally set the government back. Talk about all of that, but I get your point. To your point,
right.
Luby, your group, yourself and others, are asking for more time for this to be done properly. But it does raise the question: is how much time is more time, and at what point will time run out? Because if you're asking me to do something that's difficult, I'm going to push back and continue to push back for as long as possible. And you know, even to Ms. Thompson's point, this is something that the PLP would have started in some respect. So people would have known in some way, shape, or form that this was coming. And you're saying now that they want more time. How much time is more time? And at what point should the government say, enough, we're going to move ahead?
Well, first of all, I think the government needs to have more consultation, not just with the so-called Haitian leadership, the
What you mean so-called?
Pastors.
I saw you criticizing, saying the Haitian pastors don't represent the Haitian community.
The government, FNM and PLP does it. Both sides.
So you're saying the church really don't represent the views of the people?
No. They are yes men for the most part. The PLP has a certain set of Haitian pastors who they go to. The FNM has a certain set of Haitian pastors who they go to. And whenever
so who do the Haitian people listen to?
They have no choice to listen to these Haitian pastors because they're in their air every day. They go to church meetings, you know, throughout the week. On Sundays, these are the persons whom they're with, and these are the individuals the government is meeting with. If, for example, with this task force, I sat on one of those meetings.
And you resigned?
No, I sat
You sat on? Oh, it was Fred Smith.
In.
Fred Smith who resigned. Sorry, was it you? Yeah, who resigned.
I sat in on one of those
So only
meetings
one they invited you to?
Yeah, Dion folks. I was grateful of that opportunity
because
I learned a lot then. I learned a lot at that particular meeting. This was right before the government started the survey in the Shanty Downs. This is right before that. And basically the meeting was to announce that this is what we're going to do. So it was not consultation. We see where Dion folks is saying in the media yesterday that he consulted with the Haitian leadership, 2 organizations.
So the pastors that failed the community is what...
The Haitian pastors are failing the Bahamas. Because the government is meeting with them. They are supposed to be the man in the middle. The government is passing on the message to them. So the announcements may have been made in January, but it didn't get to the community until just recently.
Louis, no, come on.
Listen.
You're telling me that people did not, all of that concern that was raised in January, the people in the Haitian community didn't know until recently?
Until we started to actually go in, and when I say we, I'm talking about the task force in our government or whatever, until we started to actually go physically into the shanty towns is when persons started to find out what was going on. And then the notices were just recently posted. There was mixed messages also where they told persons, they identified a few of the structures on the shanty towns and told the people, okay, this looks pretty good. All right. So if you can produce the permit for it, you know,
the building permit and the occupancy
we would allow it. So if you go into the shanty town right now, you would see that select structures have actual numbers on them. The government placed numbers on them.
So are those structures to stay?
Those structures have a chance to stay, have more chance than the others, the ones with the numbers, to stay. But what the people are hearing now is that they're actually saying, no, we're not saying, what they did was they brought in architects. They got plans drawn up and those sort of stuff to say, okay, this is what it's have, so this is suitable for living. And they submitted to the Ministry of Works to see if it would be approved. But what they're hearing now is, no, that's not what we were saying. What we were saying is you need to show us the permit.
You would have had to have a building permit. Which the law speaks to. You can't just throw up a structure. You need to have a building permit.
But this is where we go
and then an occupancy certificate.
I totally agree with all of that. But this is where we say the landlord...
Yeah, the people in the ministry need to get locked up.
The people in the ministry of Works need to get locked up. The people at BPL needs to get locked up. I mean, there's so many people. The government is just, we're complicit in this whole thing.
We meaning the people.
We the people. The government, we played a major role in allowing shanty towns to get to the point that it's in right now. And 6 months cannot and is not enough time for us to deal with this. And this is not just a structural issue here.
Very quickly, we're out of time. We got to take a quick break.
Yeah, very, very swiftly, I'd like to say, considering that this didn't just happen yesterday. It's been happening for the last 30, 40, 50 years in our country, right? Which means it happens over several government administrations, right up to even when the current Prime Minister served in previous cabinets, right? He would have played a role in the complicity as well, right? And so I believe that the government now has to bite the bullet and put in the mechanisms and put some monies behind the mechanisms.
Are you saying you want government to put money towards this? And people saying they're already being taxed.
In order to correct an already bad situation that's going to get worse if it's not addressed once and for all.
Gentlemen, we've got to take one more break. Shantytown Initiative for Better or Worse is our topic. We are going to be right back with more On the Record right after this.
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use Rev Go Play.
And cut. From that food, it's packing. Here he comes.
Yo. Wait, Omar coming? Boy, this Rev Go Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
We are back with more On the Record. Tonight we're talking about the Shantytown Initiative for Better or Worse. Government is investigating how building permits were issued in the first place. All of the land, with one exception, is Crown land. That's land owned by the government that was leased to Bahamians for farming. Water and Sewage, BPL Cable Bahamas, are being instructed to disconnect services to these shanty towns. Government is also mindful that 50% of the residents of these shanty towns are under the age of 18, raising some very serious questions about how all of this has been allowed to exist and to coexist in our community for so long, when politicians, prime ministers, church leaders have driven past these communities for decades. They know that they exist. It is no secret. It is nothing that is new to us. But yet now, as this initiative is being undertaken, there seem to be more questions arising than solutions at this point. Gentlemen, we are just about out of time, so I'm going to use this segment really to give you an opportunity to wrap up. I'm going to ask you really to give us what you see as the way forward, as what should happen even at this point, whether it's we ask for more time or what should happen at this point in this process.
Well, first and foremost, I believe that the government, they did wrong when they decided to go on their own without inviting the expert insight from the official opposition. That's the first thing. And so I believe that we need to combine heads in order to resolve this problem, right?
So this is a national issue, not necessarily political.
It's absolutely a national issue, all right? And we have lots of expertise residing within the Progressive Liberal Party that can help the government in resolving this matter, right? I believe that also the government can provide a very swift solution, not necessarily by digging directly into its pockets, but indirectly through providing concessions to the persons who own these lands or who are still leasing these lands to bring in materials duty-free, VAT-free, in order to help them to develop the properties properly within the building codes in the country. And
even though the government has given them permission to use this land for farming?
Absolutely. Well, clearly the land may not even be feasible to be used as farmland any longer based upon contamination, etc. So after the cleanup exercise, I believe it would be in good thinking to allow these persons concessions to bring in the building materials, build these homes. Clearly there's a market for this low-cost home rental in the shanty towns, and so it can be made a success rather than making it a nightmare for all of the persons involved. Be able to provide them with some level of sub-housing until this process would have gone through its entirety, 6, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever the period would be, and ensure that there is a cap put on persons who have access, who own these lands, in renting them to persons in the shanty towns as a means of paying off the concessions that were granted to them by the government of the Bahamas. And I believe that can help to bring about a complete resolve as it relates to the housing issues. There are other issues and other concerns to be considered where other agencies or sister and brother agencies of government has to come into play, along with the official opposition. On that note, I'd like to end by saying...
We've got to give our other guests.
Absolutely. I'd like to end by saying A special good evening to the leader of my party, the Progressive Liberal Party, the official opposition leader, the Honorable Philip Brave Davis.
When you see him again, could you tell him we want him on the show, please?
Absolutely.
We've extended many invitations and he's not come. So when you go, take that message back to him.
The next Prime Minister.
Anyhow, when you go back to this evening, make sure to tell him, please accept our invitation. I give him a whole hour to sit here and talk. I throw the same message to the Prime Minister. Louis, I give you the final word.
Good guys. My God. But, you know, Anton is onto something there with what he's saying. It speaks to a comprehensive plan, which the government obviously does not have at this particular time. So I would implore the government to step back and to give more time and start a brand new consultative process with the official opposition, with CARICOM, with the region, some of our international partners that we have, and all stakeholders concerned. You know, so let's get a plan together and develop the areas, because there is a market for low-cost housing, not just for Haitians, but across the country. We have people hurting all around our country, and so we could create this low-cost communities where individuals can go in and they can find housing where Bahamians, Haitians, whomever can live in harmony together.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you so very much. I thank you for coming. I do want to say that we did extend an invitation to Minister Dion Folks, who chairs the committee, to come on and to speak to some of these issues, although he did send a representative in Dr. Sharita Moxie. We appreciate her coming, but certainly we do have lots more questions, and hopefully at some point we'll get the minister to come on to speak to some of these issues and provide a little more clarity. Gentlemen, thank you so very much for coming on. We appreciate it. We've got one final break, folks. Stay with us. On the Record continues right after this. We are in our second season of On the Record, and we thank you, our viewing audience, for allowing us into your homes every Thursday at 8 p.m. We value your opinion, and we want you to be a part of our discussions. So make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram and comment on our exciting topics. Remember, it's all on the record.
It's a wealth of entertainment with a touch of class and sophistication. A journey of the senses with an unparalleled sense of style. Discover hidden adventures that are cradled in the palms of paradise. Traverse the annals of human history and explore the farthest reaches of exclusivity. It's an excursion that few can afford, but all should experience. And it's only on AWE.
When we embarked on the journey to bring a debate-style show to the airwaves a little more than a year ago, it was a dive into the unknown. We didn't know if guests would agree to come, whether audiences would watch, or whether advertisers would even support it. Yet, we stepped out on faith. On Saturday, we received yet another reassurance that the impact of what we do each week is significant, and it touches the lives of Bahamians in ways we never imagined. On the Record was nominated and won 2 Bahamian Icon Awards. The first for Outstanding Achievement in Media, the second for Outstanding Recorded Entertainment Ensemble. Thank you to the Bahamian Icon Awards Selection Committee for recognizing our work. To the production team led by Alexia Coakley, Aiken Barr, Valdez Ferguson, Joey Butler, Kriston Saunders, Lynette Lockhart, Patrick Major, Regina McCook, and Shanae Smith. And also from the R News team, Christina Dragovich, Vonik Toot, and Kyle Walkane. Special congratulations to my producer, Tanya Cartwright, with whom I share the honor of the award for Outstanding Recorded Entertainment Ensemble. She continues to be the backbone of the operation. I would be remiss if I did not say a thank you to our loyal audience for continuing to support our efforts time and time again. A million thank yous. It is certainly our honor to bring this show to you every week. And with that, I'd like to say a special thanks to our guests this week, Ruby George, Dr. Sharita Moxie, and Anton Thompson. Thank you for watching. Be sure and join us for more On the Record next week, same time, same place. Good night, everyone.